President Bola Tinubu returns from Brazil with new agreements on aviation, agriculture and technology, deals the federal government says could bring in over $30 billion in investment. Now in Benue State, political drama intensifies as the speaker resigns, a new one emerges, and suspensions rock the House of Assembly, raising fresh questions about the stability in the state's governance. This is Standpoint. I am Precious Amayu. To discuss more on President Tinubu's state visits to Brazil is Biodun Ajiboye, Executive Secretary, National Institute for Cultural Orientation. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much. How are you today? I'm
very well, but let's see how the country is doing, especially with this visit by the president. First, he went to Japan for TICAD, and then he went to Brazil for a state visit. A lot of agreements came out of that visit. How strategic was that visit to Brazil by the president?
I didn't hear the last part of your question, but I heard how strategic. Please.
Yes, I was asking you how strategic that visit to Brazil is for Nigeria.
Oh, okay. Okay. First of all, we must understand and appreciate and accept the fact that Nigeria is struggling. We are struggling in every facet of our lives, be it electricity, energy, be it job, employment, everything. And why? If you care to know, 90% of Brazilians are emotionally connected to Yoruba people of Nigeria. So they see themselves as an extension of the Yoruba people of southwest Nigeria. And that is not just because they feel they should belong here. They know that their origin was actually started from here. And to that extent, they've not lost that affinity, spiritual affinity, emotional affinity with the Yoruba people of Nigeria. And they are willing to do everything possible to help their brother and sister here in Nigeria. That is the position of Brazil and Nigeria. Now, in terms of what benefits can Nigeria take from Brazil, I tell you there is no benefit.
Summit. He's been there for the G20 summit as well, and he's had meeting on the sidelines at both summits. Do you think it's with that understanding he continues to engage with Brazil?
Well, I don't hear you very clearly, and I don't know why, but I manage to pick. So in order to avoid me answering a wrong question, I think I need to hear you again. Please come again.
Okay, so you were talking about the cultural connection between Nigeria, that's via the Yoruba race, with Brazil. And I was asking you, saying that, do you think it's with that understanding that the president continues to engage with Brazil? This is the third time he's doing so.
Yeah. You know, in diplomacy, you must look for the soft part that can make you see, because in general understanding of business, there are 1 billion and one reasons why some party defaults. Sometimes be issues beyond the control of the defaulting party. But with Brazil is a little different because we are connected by certain cultural affinity. Riding on that cultural affinity will be the soft part of our relationship. Now, you seem to ask whether the president understands this part of cultural affinity or not. Yes, the answer is yes. The president understands it. And if he doesn't understand it enough, it is our responsibility, as his aides and appointees, to make it very clear to him. Now, the Yoruba have a saying that it is not all manner of clothes that is sun-dried. Therefore, there are things that we will need to discuss with the president one-on-one to help his understanding of certain other things that will help the general relationship that we are trying to build. But in our own case, the Orisha, is a faith that has gathered close to 500 million followers across the world. Now, interestingly, the Orisha originated from here. How do we then take advantage? How do we then take advantage of these blessings of Olodumare to our economic benefit? That is what is left for us, and that is what we are doing at the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, Federal Ministry of Culture, Arts, Culture, Tourism, and Creative Economy. We are taking advantage of the opportunity we have seen, that we created the World Orisha Congress. The World Orisha Congress aims at bringing all Orisha devotees from every part of the world to have some time in Nigeria, the cradle of their faith, the cradle of their social civilization, and say, okay, we are here, and this is the way we want it to go. So it behoves on us as a nation to have a good package that can accommodate the tourists, the religious and cultural tourists. So therefore, what do we need to do?
Bring into the country. I will get back to that in just a moment. Bring into the country. I will get back to that in just a moment. But I want to talk about perhaps what people will say is one of the biggest gain from this trip, which is the fact that Airpeace has now gotten the right to fly from Lagos to Sao Paulo. What does that mean for the aviation sector?
It means everything. Now that we've opened bilateral relations with Brazil, the influx to Brazil will now be a lot more, to the extent that, you know, the Yoruba people have always gone to Brazil. The people involved in the cultural religion of Yoruba, Orisha, they've always gone to Brazil. But the route is very, very stressful. You go to either Qatar or Ethiopia, then you need to understand very effectively that the tourism, the cultural tourism opportunity in Brazil is ad infinitum. If you are capable, if we are capable as a country to say it is $50 billion we want to benefit, it is okay. The reason why I'm saying that is that for you to take 1 million visitors as tourists, you need to have a lot of infrastructure. And so our ability to take advantage of cultural tourism from Brazil will now depend on how much infrastructure we are able to put in place effectively. So if we have the infrastructure that can take 50 million people, for instance, right? If we have the infrastructure that can take 5 million people, for instance, we are talking of $50 billion as I just told you about. So with the Ooni of Ife, Alaafin Oyo, and Atajo of Osogbo, where it will be easy for us to relate with the state government. Now, but the first things first is to try and meet with the president, with the board of trustees, and our patron. So we are making that effort. Once we meet with the president, we need to present to the president the nitty-gritty of this idea. Of course, the president already knows, because we've been working on this for quite a while. I've been to Brazil about 5 times since my assumption of office about a year and 7 months ago. So what we are saying basically here is that the cultural tourism is the biggest that Nigeria can benefit from Brazil. Rather than, chase them with our money, they are going to be chasing us with their own dollars. So we need that investment. Nigeria needs that tourism part of that Brazilian benefit, and we need to start immediately.
And interesting how you broke it down in terms of naira and kobo. What it amounts to? You say you used the dollar equivalent of it, but what it amounts to if Nigeria went to invest in cultural tourism exchange with Brazil. But I also wanted to look because again you've mentioned tourism. We've talked about the aviation sector, which is also tied to tourism if that were to happen. But let's talk about the oil and gas industry. The president was quite...
in terms of foreign exchange earnings, in terms of employment, and in terms of boosting the local economy.
And the president also called for Brazilian companies to come to Nigeria and invest, probably even set up here. But some people are saying, look, we need to be injecting more life into our local manufacturing sector here and ensuring that we have the right infrastructure. You have also mentioned infrastructure, that our manufacturing sector should thrive before we even think of, the behemoths from other countries coming here. How do you also react to that?
Well, I didn't hear you quite well, but I have an idea of what you are trying to say. But let me flip it this way for you. Now, the greatest invitation to treat. If we hold it from the angle of culture, every other thing will follow. I mean, if, for instance, 5 million Brazilians come to Nigeria every year, it is enough to tell Brazil that their interest should be here. It's in Nigeria. So,
and Mr. Ajiboye, I hear you, but my question was really around analysts who say whilst the president is engaging with foreign companies to come to Nigeria and invest, they are saying, look, let's inject money, resources, and life into the manufacturing sector here and ensure that they are profitable and productive before we begin to invite behemoths from other countries into Nigeria. And I was trying to get a reaction to that.
Okay, I get you now. Well, investment doesn't work like that most of the time. When you have a monopoly, not exactly a monopoly, when you have something that interests investors and you appear not to have the right environment to drive it, if the investment is juicy, the investor will find a way of operating within the limit of your possibilities. Now, that is not supposed to say that we do not need to improve. It now behoves on us as Nigeria to ensure that we provide a level playing field and a good environment for those investments to thrive.
Okay, so it wasn't really my opinion. I was just, just restating what some analysts have said about the manufacturing sector here. But it appears you didn't get that part, so we'll just move on. Again, when you talk about agriculture, one of the first few countries that will come to your mind is Brazil, because of how well they have done. And that was also one of the sectors on the table, in terms of discussion in Brazil. What lessons can we learn, or what lessons can Nigeria draw from Brazil in terms of its agricultural reforms? All right, thanks for staying with us. You're watching Standpoint. We'll be having a conversation with Mr. Biodun Ajiboye, who on the president's trip to Brazil and the gains from that. We've talked about tourism, cultural exchange. We've also talked about the oil sector, the aviation sector. And as we begin to wind down the conversation, I just wanted to ask you again, Mr. Ajiboye, what lessons Nigeria can draw from the agricultural reforms in Brazil?
Yeah, very simple. An order for about 2,000 or 10,000 tractors have been made to be delivered in batches. Now, some state governments, Kaduna and Plateau State, took very strong advantage of livestock, you see, Brazil is gone very far in the area of agriculture, and food packaging is of the first world standard. The benefit to take from Brazil is, like I said to you, is ad infinitum. Even in the area of export, look at simple things like bitter cola, alligator pepper is an industry, or is an export sector of about $15 million monthly. So, and all of these are specific to us. So we need to reorganize our economic sector very well to be able to service, Nigeria and Brazil, bilateral relations, economic bilateral relations.
And for those who have been watching the president make all of these trips, whether it's to Brazil or to Japan or to France, and are wondering, look, have we even started to see the gains at all? Are they foreign direct investments coming in yet? Where are we in terms of the gains and the implementation of the MOUs we have signed with?
Not but perform,
Thank you so much for your time. We'll be following through with all of these agreements and how it is playing out, especially how it trickles down to Nigerians. The Executive Secretary, National Institute for Cultural Orientation, Otumba Biodun Ajiboye. A pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.